Welcome back, everybody, to Founder Fables. So glad you're here with us today. Localtude features founders from around the globe, especially in the United States, who are doing amazing, incredible, unique, different things and bringing them straight to you so you get to enjoy their genius and their passion and connect with them on a personal level. So today I have a real treat for you. We have Jessica Johns from Jessica Johns Design, and she is artist, incredible, spectacular. You are going to be amazed by this woman. I want to introduce you. Welcome, Jessica. So glad you're here with us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm super excited to be here.
Yeah, we're excited to have you. Her information is below if you want to go check out her work while we're talking. So, Jessica, you are a Taekwondo black belt, sorry, I was going to say future RN, no, former RN, mom. You used to do health coaching. I mean, wow, you have quite the past, and now you have turned artist.
Yes. Yes. Many hats over the years, which is good because I get a little bored when I stick with one thing too long.
Oh my gosh, me too. I'm right there with you.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, art has to come from somewhere inside of you. And I think a lot of us have this idea, this concept that like that whole, black belt, RN, all of these like really structured things is almost not synonymous with artist. I love that combination that you have.
Yes. Art has always been like my core thing. Like it's probably what I should have done from the very beginning. I mean, I loved being a nurse. I loved all the information, all of the knowledge, like the cool things I got to do, the people I got to help. I really, really did love that. But art has always been that like connecting thread. It was always my go-to when I needed that like creative flowing outlet. I mean, since I was little, I didn't want to use coloring books because I wanted to draw my own pictures and do my own art. So I wanted like plain paper and pencils. I didn't want those coloring books. So it's always been a part of me. And I think it was a very good compliment, especially in those years where I was doing, as a nurse, there's lots of rules, right? You have to comply, which, of course you want that in the medical profession. You want to be regulated and follow those things to keep people safe and make sure everybody's on the same page. But the thing I love about art is you can't put art in a box, right? Like that there's really no rules.
Hold on.
When you come down to it.
Jessica, we're having a bit of a connection issue. It's funny because we've been on back scenes for a while with no connection issue, and then suddenly we're having a connection issue. So I just want to have you repeat what you just said.
Yeah.
About art not being in a box.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just making sure you can see me. Can you see and hear me now?
I can see and hear you now. And if we have another issue, we will, hold on. Yeah, give me just a second. Keep talking about art and how.
Okay, I think Christina is still here. So what I was saying is that in the medical profession, obviously, you have a lot of rules and regulations, and you have to follow those to keep people safe, to make sure everyone's on the same page, which is important. The thing I like about art is there are no rules in art. You get to make them up as you go. You get to use a little bit of this technique and a little bit of this technique. So it's very fluid, and you kind of get to do it how you want to do it. And people can't tell you that's not the way you do a watercolor, or that's not the way you use those pens. And I love that. I love that part about my art. And I know just knowing other artists, everybody kind of feels that way. So it just makes it special and different, which is fantastic. Let's see. I'll talk about some of my other stuff back here. I have some of my artwork here. which some of it is in progress, some of it is finished. I like to do a lot of really bright, vivid watercolors. And watercolor is actually something I just learned to do a couple years ago. So it's kind of fun to, I don't know, just to have something that is kind of new to me, but something that I've really been able to use a lot in the artwork that I do and the commission pieces that I've been able to create for people. So that has been a really fun journey to learn, because I don't have any formal art training. I've just kind of figured it out as I went, which is kind of the way I like to do things. And I originally started out doing a lot of just pen and ink, black and white. Mandalas was something that I really enjoyed doing. I did a lot of those, and actually created some adult coloring books a couple years ago when that was all the rage, which was super fun. And then I kind of put the art away for a couple years, and then felt like it was time to really launch into my career as an artist in this last year. Being home, is an interesting opportunity to be able to be here and create. And it's been a very fun journey so far. Let's see, what else should we talk about while Christina's getting her internet back together here? I do a lot of commission work for people, which is super fun. And I work with a project called, apparently her internet just got disconnected by a pressure washer outside. So I will just keep chatting. I do a lot of work with a nonprofit called Buzzy's Bees, and they have a project called Give Grief a Voice. And that's something that I've had the opportunity to work with over this last year. And it's been very powerful and very important to me, and kind of has given me that, it feels right. It feels like that's what I should be doing. And that's a big reason, I think, why I was inspired to start really pursuing my art this year. So that program works with families who have unexpectedly lost a child. So people who didn't really have time to, grieve their child. And it was, it's a huge thing in their life. And so the organization works with those families to get to tell their story. So they have something tangible to remember their children by. You're back.
I am back.
I've just been hosting my own show here while you've been gone.
So, a funny story. I am so sorry, Jessica. They literally, they're pressure washing outside my house, and they just blew out my internet connection. Oh my gosh. I am so sorry.
It's okay.
I'm back.
Do you want me to tell you what I talked about while you're gone?
Fill me in.
Yeah, I talked about how we ended that, about art not being in a box, and that you can kind of do what you want with art. And I love that feeling of getting to do what I want to do, how I want to do it. And then I was just starting to talk about the Give Grief a Voice project and Buzzy Space.
This is something I think that really sets your passions into perspective with your art. I think it's a really important piece. So had you already explained what
a little bit, and I'll kind of go over it again. I was just talking about how the project is helping families who have unexpectedly lost a child, and helping them process their grief in a way that they have something tangible to remember their children by. So the organization has authors and artists that they use to help the families tell the story of their child, which is amazing and powerful. And it's such a unique organization. I don't know of anything out there like what they do. And they, as an artist, we get the stories. I don't meet the families. I don't, at least not before I create the art. I get the story of the family and the story of the child in some beautiful writing from their very talented authors. And there's usually a lot of like beautiful imagery and, you know, signs that the family sees of their, you know, children, things that remind them of them. And then I get to create a piece of art, a very large piece of art, something, a statement piece that they get to have on their wall that, you know, brings them joy, you know, is something to really signify the importance of their lost family member. It's
I
very
think
powerful.
one of my favorite parts of the project and the organization and what they're doing is that they don't, this is going to sound weird, but they don't have, you know, the artist or the author meet the family before the work is created. And for me, I've experienced loss in my life, and what you get to create as an artist is something that captures all of the joy and the beauty and the vitality of the child without the grief. And so that's what you get to, you know, give. That's the gift actually to the family, is capturing that, not how it ended, you know.
Yeah.
And I love that piece of that project. To me, that's really, really powerful.
Yeah, it's incredible. And I was saying too that I feel like that's one of the, I mean, I feel like a lot of things happen for, you know, in my life, I've seen the path to art. A lot of the things that have happened along the way are exactly where I'm supposed to be. And doing that project really, we were able to, they had a gala a couple weeks ago, a very small event because of COVID and everything, but a very, very small event where I was able to meet the mom of one of my families and kind of present the artwork to her. And that was very emotional, but I felt like my art really mattered. It really gave me that sense of like, I'm doing this for a reason and I'm doing it for the right reason. And I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be, creating art for these families.
Now, when you started doing this art, I mean, I know you've kind of always, you know, fiddled in art, but you know, when you started kind of pursuing this, people really had to talk you into it. You had been kind of doodling flowers in your son's, you know, notebooks, you know, painting things for coffee table, you know, stuff, and people started encouraging you to do this as your livelihood, as something, you know, giving this piece of you. And they actually had to convince you. You were like, no, I'm not comfortable with this. So why did, or how did people have like go through that process of trying to convince you to become an artist?
Right. Yeah, it is pretty funny when I look back at it. I'm like, seriously, why? Right. And I'm kind of like a go big or go home kind of girl. Like that's our family motto, is go big or go home. So I hadn't really done a lot of art when my kids were younger. They're older now. They're middle schoolers. And I kind of had started doing some artwork as I was going through actually online meditation class, which meditation was very new to me at the time. This was about 6 years ago. And I suffered depression, and I have on and off throughout my whole life. And I was going through kind of a hard time when my kids were little, but had just gone off to school and like all day school. It was a weird shift for me. So I started doodling while I was listening to this meditation, this month-long meditation interviews is what they were. And it was fantastic. And so I started doodling and started drawing mandalas for the first time. And I didn't really even know what a mandala was. I'd seen, you know, it was.
And yours are incredible. Oh my gosh.
Thank you. So I just started doing them, and, you know, I just was posting them online because I like to share. And I was sitting at Taekwondo and my kids were in class, and I had like some, you know, like old notebook that I'd found in their like art drawer that I was like using, and I was drawing them and started posting them. And at that time, friends were like, you should turn that into a coloring book, an adult coloring book. Cause that was when those were like all the rage, you know, for like a hot minute. And so I was like, okay. And because I had, I don't know, 40 of them, I think. I had just drawn and drawn and drawn. And so I made them into some coloring books, which people had to convince me, like, no, people will buy these. Like, just make them, like, like build it and they will come, kind of a thing. Like, make them and people will buy them. Yes. So I kind of like, I went to the local print shop and made some of those. And, I sold them for, like 2 Christmas seasons, I think was when that was kind of popular. And I did some coffee and coloring mornings at a local coffee shop, Lionheart Coffee, who are amazing people. A little nice plug for my friends there.
What's the name
so
of it?
Lionheart Coffee Co.
Lionheart
They're in Beaverton. Yeah, 2 different places. They are phenomenal people and make really good coffee. Anyways, I did some color and coffee mornings there. People would just come and I had like sheets for them to color on. So I did that a little bit, and that like kind of like, sparked my fire a little bit that, like people like my art. Like to me, it's just what I do. Like it was always, doodle here, draw this. And then a couple of years went by, right? The coloring book thing was kind of on the back burner. It wasn't, I still have some, right? Like it wasn't as popular anymore. And I kind of like lost steam on it.
Yeah.
And then I decided that I would learn how to paint. So 2 years ago, I learned how to watercolor, which is hilarious because that's like my jam. I mean,
your thing. Like that's what you're known for. Yeah. 2 years. Wow. Okay.
Yeah. 2 years ago. And I was in a mastermind group, and I've also been a health coach for years with a company. And it just like my passion was just fizzling with that a little bit. It just didn't feel right anymore, but I kept going back to the art. And in this mastermind class, this group, I was talking to the women in there, and I would talk about my art and be all excited. And then I'd be kind of frustrated about, the other thing and go back and forth. And they just looked at me, like they would just listen to me talk and be like, And I'm like, I just don't know what to do. I'm not sure like which direction to go. They're like, Jessica, art, do your art. That's what you love. Like, that's what, people love your art. People, they had to talk me into it. I'm like, no. Like I did that. Like I did my coloring books and they seriously, after a couple of meetings, they had to continually talk me into pursuing it. And that was probably about a year and a half ago. And I kind of like, did a little bit here. And then something about the change of the year, like last New Year's Eve kind of a thing, everybody has their new resolutions or what they're going to do this year. And for me, I just was like, well, why not try it? Like I got nothing to lose.
Right. Well, and I mean, it's funny how we discount our own selves, right? We say, oh no, that's not worth sharing. That's not worth putting out in the world.
Right.
It doesn't really matter if I'm passionate about it. Nobody else is going to jump on board. Yeah. And, that's, I think the shift we're seeing, if you will, in the world of entrepreneurship is, if you truly follow your passion, people will respond to that, right? It will resonate with people, and that connectivity is something that I think is more of a new concept in this whole. It doesn't just have to be sales and pushy and marketing. It gets to be your passion connects to other people with that passion. And I love the transition from like 2 years ago, you started painting to now you're, known for it. And your big goal, like your mission in the world is to create these beautiful, wonderful, funky art pieces for people who don't even know they want them. Don't even know they need it yet. I love that transition, and in a short time period. That's so exciting.
Yeah, it's like it took me 41 years to finally like realize what I wanted to be when I grew up. I mean, really.
That's great. My teenage son always tells me, Mom, what do I have to decide now? You don't.
Nope. Right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It's a journey.
So you do a really neat fusion thing with your watercolors that I want to point out because I think it's really what sets you apart. My dad was an artist and he loved fusing all sorts of things together that you would never envision. And I think when we think watercolor, we think soft, we think, muted, we think gentle, but
Mm-hmm.
I love what you do with your art because you actually mash together two things that we would never think to put together. And what are those?
Yeah. So yes, I had always done pen and ink, and I liked the hard lines of it. I liked the dark, like the intense contrast. Like that was my jam. The black and white mandalas. That's what I'd always done. And I could never figure out how to add color. Like I would have colored pencils and I would have markers, and I was like, ugh, like this is just not. I knew I needed to, like somewhere I was like, I have to start adding color, but because I feel like that's where I need to go, but I couldn't figure it out.
Yeah.
I'd always wanted to paint. I took like a painting class in college. I was terrible at it. It was oils. I don't know. That was just not my jam.
Yeah.
It was not my jam. And so I just thought, well, I'm not a painter. I can't paint, but I always wanted to. So I took an online watercolor class 2 years ago, and I did it for like, I don't know.
Online.
My goal was, online. Yeah. So I did, my goal was to do, I think it was like 3 months of online watercolor classes. Like that was when I had a whole list of things I wanted to do before I turned 40. And so that was on there. And I did that class, and I was like, I love this. Like, I loved like the flow of it, and that it wasn't exact, and it wasn't those hard lines, and how the colors just kind of like, there were no rules, right?
Yeah.
It just did what it wanted to. It was that whole, just the flow of it was super cool. But I did find that when I was done with the watercolor, like I loved the color I was able to create. Like I really liked that, but it was just, it didn't have like Jessica Flair to it. There was just something about it that I'm like, this doesn't quite feel like me. So I like have all my pens, all my, mandala pens next to me. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to start doing some of my ink work on top of the watercolor. And as soon as I did that, I was like, yep, it's exactly what it needed. Yeah. And even still, I will do a watercolor and I'll think, okay, like maybe just leave this one. Like just leave it, walk away. Like it looks good. And then I'll like keep looking at it like, oh, maybe. And I try and walk away and like leave it, which is a good thing for many things in life, right? Like you think you're overdoing it and you're getting in your head. Yeah. Walk away, right? Walk away from arguments, from whatever. Like walk away and see it with fresh eyes, fresh heart, fresh ears.
Yeah.
And every single time it ends up needing ink, and I just love it.
I love that. So like the paintings that are behind you, all of them, are a combination of this watercolor and pen and ink. Yeah. One of the things I love about your artwork is the colors you're able to capture with watercolor. Because
it's pretty amazing.
What's expected. Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
This is one of my first
look at the colors.
You know what? I think this actually maybe was my first floral that I was like, it needs something. And so I started doing the ink work on it. And it's hard. Watercolor, gosh, it is hard to capture in photographs and on the internet.
Oh, absolutely.
So, but just adding that ink work to it and it gives it something different, right? And it
does.
It looks like mine. And that's what makes me happy, which in itself is a big process as an artist, is
for sure finding that identity in your art.
Yeah, finding your identity and getting over the fact that everything you create looks like you created it. And I tell you what, that has been a very interesting part of art. And the journey is, for a while, I hated it because I'm like, it looks like I painted it. I don't want it to look like I painted it. I want it to look like, this painting that I saw, or what my watercolor instructor had created. But once I saw a quote, and I wish I could remember where I saw it or who it was from, that said, artists you're always trying to make it not look like yours. Like that's initially what you try and do. But the beauty is, and the kind of key to being an artist is realizing that you're going to get better, but it's always going to look like you. And that's the magic.
Well, yeah, I mean, we identify art by who has created it. That your identity leaking into it is what we end up, loving about it. Like I have an artist who every time I see one of his paintings, I go, "Oh, I know who that is."
Yeah.
And sadly, he's
Yeah.
passed from this world now. But every time I see one of his paintings, I go, "Oh, I know who that is," because
Mhm.
I connect to that style, that personality, that thing that
Mhm.
ripples out of him.
Yeah.
And that's the same for, all of your art. I mean, when we see a Monet, we know it's a Monet,
Right. Yep. Yep. And I'm sure Monet hated it
I'm
for a
sure,
while,
yeah.
right?
Right, for
Mhm.
sure.
Mhm.
And so then, how do people go and actually find or buy or engage with your art or support what you're doing? Get a
Um,
Christmas present for somebody.
right. Yep. A couple different ways. I do have a website, which you've got there on the ticker. It's just simple, jessicajohnsdesign.com. And I've got a couple different things on there. I do sell, I do commission work. I do prints of my artwork and I do sell my originals. Sometimes it's hard for me to part with them. They're a
Yeah.
part of me, right? And so I'm like, oh, I don't know. Are you going to take good care of it? Um, but I do sell those. I do have some like fun, funky t-shirts. I do a little bit of digital art too, and I put them on t-shirts. So those are on there. And I post a lot of my stuff on Instagram. Same thing. It's
Mhm.
at Jessica Johns Design. Keep everything simple and easy to find me.
That's great.
So you can see my newest paintings. I do time lapse, which is always fun. I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
I love watching when artists do their time lapse. So I started doing some of those.
Fun.
And then, and I do progress pictures of my artwork, which is kind of fun to see it develop in little bits. So a couple different ways. And like I said, art is pretty limitless. So if you have an idea or have a vision that maybe art is not your jam, but you see something and you need it created for your wall or you know your business,
I love
don't
that.
hesitate to reach out. So
So the perception out there is that, yeah, I'd love to have art, but I can't really afford art. And what do you say to that? How do you respond to those people that are like, yeah, I'd love to have a custom piece of art, but there's no way I
right,
can afford it, so I'm not even going to ask.
right, right, yes. um my thing is when we support local artists and when we put that um, effort into supporting people who are doing this on their own, and you make somebody really happy, right? I mean, you
Yeah,
can go to
absolutely.
like a box store and buy a piece of art that yes, an artist created that and that's fantastic, but when you buy from a entrepreneur, a small business, you make somebody pretty dang happy. So I think putting the effort into that, and really I think often people have a misunderstanding of maybe how much art might cost.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think reaching out, finding the person's art that you love, and then finding a way to um, get it on your wall. Maybe you buy a print, maybe you buy a small print, and that's a good way to start. And maybe you work your way into a larger piece. But
Well, and I think the difference for me in art is that custom pieces that hang on your wall become part of your home,
mhm,
become part of who you are, become part of what people love, when they come visit. It inspires more than just you. And a print that's been, hanging in thousands of homes, yes, it's still art, but it's not yours. You don't have that personal connection with it. And
mhm,
I find that when I do buy art and I hang it in my home, it becomes part of me. And I love
yeah,
that. So
yeah, mhm,
now, one of the things that I want to point out before we go, and again, sorry for the blip on the internet, but one of the things I really wanted to point out is this idea of perfectly imperfect, um, because I think that so many of us struggle with this idea of perfectionism and not being able to either get out whatever is in us out to the world,
mhm,
or be able to accept something in that isn't perfect, you know? And I know you as an artist have had to, you know, travel that journey for yourself. But I love this idea that your, you know, like perfect client is somebody who's willing to see the fun and the vivid and the funky and this idea of perfectly imperfect, and that you you kind of embrace that in your art. I think that might be my favorite part of what you do. So how did you come up with that concept?
So that actually was the title of my first adult coloring book, was Perfectly Imperfect.
Oh, nice.
Because the thing I love about handmade art is that there's always a wiggle here and there's always a little splatter here. And that is like, those are the pieces that show you the creation process.
Yeah.
That is the, you know, when my kid came in the door and I looked up and smiled at them and I made a little wiggle, or my cat jumped on my lap for a snuggle and I accidentally, you know, splattered a little bit of paint. That's the realness. That's like the life of the paintings, of the drawings. And I think once I figured out how to embrace that and see it for the, you know, the fun and the joy and just that realness, it just was part of that, like that magic, right? Like there's those little pieces of magic that you are like, you know what, that's why art is so cool.
It is,
because you can turn something into, like, a funny example. So those big flamingos right there, see, there's like a little dragonfly. Gosh, it's really hard to point in the camera.
It is if you have to go backwards.
Yeah. That little dragonfly, which I love him. Like, he's such a cute little guy. And you can see him close up on my Instagram if you want to see it. I dropped my paintbrush.
I was going to say, I think you dropped your paintbrush on there.
I was painting that black beak tip, and I don't know, I was talking to my husband, and I'm always very expressive with my hands, if you haven't been able to tell. And I just flew, the paintbrush just flew out of my hand. And at first I was like, like so upset, because it was like the very last thing I was doing. And I was like, I should just throw it away. I should just throw it away, which was my gut instinct, until I was like, no, like it's perfect. I will turn, it needed something there. And you know, there's a reason I splattered it there. It needed something. And then once I added it, I was like,
it actually makes the whole painting.
He's perfect. He's perfectly imperfect. And it's still a little wonky where that splatter was, but you know what?
I love it.
It worked.
And last but very much not least, your art often comes from your dreams. You mentioned that, you know, through meditation and through dream work, you find your inspiration. And when did you start noticing that was where your inspiration was coming from?
It probably, my dog is here to say hello. There's a dog nose in the.
Oh, hello.
There he is.
Oh,
yeah.
What kind of dog?
He's an English setter. I have two of them, and they're giant. And hopefully, he won't knock over my paintings. No,
that's okay. The tails are brutal.
Oh, right, like fan tails. So, I really started focusing on meditation probably in the last, I don't know, year. I did that meditation class I talked about at the beginning, which was really cool, because it was. I really learned that meditation was a good way to kind of center yourself and, you know, to work through stress. And it was a great thing for that, but I never really used it to kind of visualize my paintings and my artwork. And once I kind of realized that in this last, probably 6 months to a year, I really started like being quiet and listening and seeing that imagery that was in there, because sometimes I would force it, and you can't force art. You just
like trying to write when you're blocked, you know, it's like,
not happening, right? You can't force it. But when you're able to be quiet and center yourself, that is really where some great inspiration can come in. And I think so often we don't give ourselves even a second of the day to be quiet.
Yeah.
Right? You can, and I mean, obviously I'm not perfect by any means at this. I go days and days and I think like, I didn't even, my day went by so, fast. I didn't have any moments where I was very like present and in the moment. And I think that is where one of the beauties of meditation. And I know sometimes people are resistant to meditation because they're like, oh, I don't know what, like,
Yeah.
is it too woo woo or is it this or
that long?
yeah, is it like a religious thing or is it an anti-religious thing? Like there's a lot of, I think there's a whole lot of stuff.
Whole thing.
A whole lot of stuff. But if you just take it as a time to center yourself, I think you can find a lot of answers to questions that you're looking for, or for me, inspiration for, I don't know, it just gives me those ideas that I didn't know I needed often.
Yeah.
And I've created some really cool artwork from it. I will just get an image in my head. I'm like, I don't know who this is for, but I'm going to paint it.
Yeah.
And they're going to see it. And it's funny. They, a good friend of mine, I did that the other day. I painted, this is one of my recent ones. It's kind of hard to see, but it's hands. And there's a sunset behind it and kind of a galaxy around it. And that just came to me. I don't know how, I don't know why, but I just saw that image and I painted it. And she's like, that's mine. You painted that for me.
Wow.
And,
well, that's how Local 2 started, an idea in the shower and a moment of quiet, where it was just like, oh, this is possible. So, I mean, art flows from the same energy that all ideas flow from, right? Yeah. And when we tap into that, when we give ourselves the ability, the permission to allow that in, it comes in, it's there already. Yeah. We just have to open to it. And I love that your art flows through dreams and flows through those quiet moments. Because not only does it support you and your mental state and your health of just taking some time to like reset and allow your brain to find its inspiration, but you then get to pass that. It's almost like it carries the energy of that meditation with it and passes it on to the person who has it hang in their home, which is beautiful.
Yeah, it's really special.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. This has been delightful. I really, really appreciate it. And your art is stunning and beautiful. Everybody go out and get a gift for a family member, a friend, your secret Santa, whatever it is. Absolutely. And check out her art below or on Instagram. She's also on Facebook, same tag. And we love having you here. Thank you. I really love just everything you're doing and all of the causes you support and just your energy. I love your energy. You're so awesome. So thank you for being with Localtude and for being here today. And we hope that all of you out there go out and get inspired by Jessica John Designs and see what takes hold and is supposed to hang in your home. Awesome. Perfect though it may be.
Thank you.
Right. Thank you so much. I appreciate you joining us today. Ciao. And we'll see you next time on Found Your Fables.